Hello, everyone. I'm Amelia Niger, the Education Specialist with the Oracle Applications and Technology Users Group. I'm very excited to welcome you all to today's session, Reduce Compliance Complexity with Integrated Tax Technology. Before we dive in and get started, I'd like to briefly introduce everyone to OATUG in case you're new to our programming. We're a community of Oracle users, and we provide education, networking, and support to our members. Make sure to save the date for our Ascend conference next year. It will be at the Caribe Royale Resort in Orlando from June 11th to the 14th. Just a quick reminder for today's webinar, you will be on mute throughout the session. However, you are welcome to send questions at any time through the question box in your control panel, which we will address at the end. You will also receive a brief survey at the conclusion of this webinar. Your response will help us shape the future of our education. If you are interested in receiving CPE credit, your survey response will be required. You will also need to be logged into the session for 50 minutes and post at least one question. We are recording this session, and the recording as well as the slide deck will be available to OATUG members in the knowledge base. You'll see the link for that in the chat area. And now, I'd like to introduce today's speaker. We have Matt Thoman, who's with Edge, Product Manager Principal with Vertex. So Matt, thanks so much for facilitating today's discussion and presentation. You can take it away.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk about reducing compliance complexity with integrated tax technology. And let's start with a little background on the changing technology landscape. The evolution of technology and how it impacts tax continues to evolve. And if you take a quick look back to the 1970s, in the pre-computing era, everything was centered around centralizing internal processes and trying to manage things from a central location to keep data organized. And in the 90s, with the advent of ERPs and computing, the adoption of such tools helped to centralize and improve control over key tasks and manage risks within the systems. Starting in the 2000s, you started to see movement to the cloud. This was for the purpose of centralizing data and managing complexity as companies moved to expand globally, and migrating to the cloud helped to adopt cloud-based and SaaS-based tools to help for ease of use and management. And so moving forward, the cloud, as we're going to talk about, provides a lot of benefits to centralizing technology, but in order to meet real-time demands, it does have limitations. And so moving forward, what we're seeing is that a lot of companies are adopting edge computing in order to solve some of those real-time and localized needs. And throughout all of this, the thing that's really driving all changes is customer experience, and that's always been the case, and I don't expect it to ever change. And when asked, many of our customers talk about what defines a poor customer experience as long, slow checkout or disjointed experiences between different ways that they communicate with their customers. So in the modern era, and this is in particular for modern retailers, there are a lot of new ways that our customers are interacting with their clients. And when several months ago, I was at the Oracle Retail Conference, and we saw a lot of conversation happening around some of these new business models that are being adopted in the retail world, like pay by link and pop-up stores. I think circular retail is a really interesting model because it allows retailers to talk about how they're benefiting the environment while they're still benefiting their customers at the same time. So circular retail, for those that don't know, simply involves having buyback programs and repair programs so that once the customer has purchased a product, that they are continuing to maintain that product, even if it means buying it back and selling it pre-owned again, so that their products are viewed as less disposable. They're not just sitting in the back of somebody's closet or going into a landfill, something like that. And there's also an element of the retailer seeing this as very profitable. We're also seeing things like micro fulfillment and mobile and contactless checkout, and then online marketplaces is another big one, which very significantly changes the way that our customers are interacting with their customers. So how does all of this impact tax? I think that there are very significant impacts to tax with all of these. And if we just take a look at the regulatory landscape that exists today, you can see around 90 countries have transaction tax regulations with over 19,000 plus taxing jurisdictions. And in a lot of countries, that means counties, particularly in the US, counties and cities, and even things like transportation districts have taxing authorities or have taxing authority to charge transaction taxes within their jurisdiction. And this creates a lot of complexity for modern organizations because they have to pay all of these and they have to calculate all of them. Our tax engine today has about 300 million rules in it. And for a modern organization, it simply isn't scalable to have a tax department that's manually keying these in and tracking and monitoring changes all over the world, everywhere that they're doing business. That's why tax engines exist. So some of the things that are important to us or important to our clients when we talk about complexity and key questions to ask are how, when, and where tax is assessed. A lot of sales tax is just taxed wherever the buyer is located, but that's not all of it. And there are very differing regulations about charging taxes at the origin or when it's not clear where the customer is located, such as in the case of selling digital goods. Which jurisdictions and regulations apply in which cases. With a lot of our rules, they are specific to certain types of products. So a jurisdiction might charge a standard rate on one product and might charge a special rate on another product, or even certain complexities like conditional rules around usage. So if you're selling a product to one type of customer, it might change the taxability versus selling it to a different type of customer. So how can you ensure consistent and accurate tax determination across all of your systems? So we all know nowadays that when you're interacting, particularly in the retail space, with your customers, that they are looking at multiple different lines of business and interacting with all of them at the same time. It's pretty common nowadays for a buyer to walk through a retail store and to be looking on that same company's website, or to be looking at the same products in an online marketplace, either looking for the best deal or looking for the model that they want. And it's becoming more and more important for retailers to understand how their products and what their user experience is across all of these lines of business, to ensure that they're not wildly different moving from one to the next, because their customers are looking at often more than one of them at the same time. So how can you ensure timely and accurate reporting and remittance? This is always key, and this item typically focuses around data. How are you managing your transaction data, and how is that data interacting with your compliance tools in order to make sure that that you have the data that you need when it comes time to report, when it comes time to pay your taxes. So one of the biggest ways that customers solve a lot of these problems is they move their tax calculation to the cloud. So Vertex has an O-Series cloud product that has some of these critical capabilities. These are some key features that exist within O-Series cloud. And the important thing to remember about all of these is that they are all designed to allow an organization to set up a tax policy that meets their needs, and it might be different across different lines of business. It might need to be the same in certain cases across different lines of business. It all depends on what your tax department views as the correct solution for their expertise, and they have a lot of control over how they drive this solution and what your tax looks like across all lines of business. So the taxpayer hierarchy feature in particular allows them to control very closely the relationship between different lines of business from a tax policy perspective, so that they know that the tax policy is different where it needs to be different, and it's the same where it needs to be the same. However, there's a fly in the ointment, so to speak. When you move things like transaction-based computing to the cloud, that requires a system to call across the internet to get some kind of calculation and then have the result go back across the internet. And this creates limitations. It invites a whole bunch of risk, particularly if you need that transaction to be done in real time, or it's going to use a large amount of bandwidth, or if you simply need it to be secure. And this is where edge computing comes in. So edge computing essentially moves that calculation from the cloud localized to the point of need. And edge computing is not the same as on-premise software. It's very, very different in that it is an extension of cloud computing. If you think about smartphone or the apps on your phone or on your smartwatch, all of them utilize edge computing, and they make very, very intentional decisions about what is happening locally on the device that's sitting in your hand and what is happening in the cloud. You take, for instance, a fitness tracker that sits on your wrist. It's calculating your heart rate in real time because you need that information instantaneously when you're using your watch. It would be silly to take to move a simple calculation and call across the internet in order to get that. It would invite latency if you moved yourself into a dead zone where you didn't have connectivity to the internet, or even if you moved away from your cell phone so you didn't have connectivity, you would lose the ability to calculate your heart rate. However, it's not truly on-premise, because if you want to look at your heart rate data from an exercise from like 3 weeks ago, all of that information is in the cloud. So you can open up an app that's on a completely separate device. You can pull that data down, and you can essentially view a report of that data that's housed somewhere in the cloud for you to pull it down from anywhere. So why do companies utilize edge computing? So there's 4 really significant reasons. Law of physics. So when you talk about needing real-time calculations where latency will actually play a significant role in the experience of the end user, or in some type of system automation. And in the tax world, there's a very obvious use case for this in retail, because you need to calculate tax in North America in order to check out your customers. So if you're not getting decisions back in real time, you're creating a substandard customer experience. You're inviting risk in the form of cart abandonment online, or you're just creating long lines in a retail store in your checkout experience. The law of economy is reason number 2. So if you have high volume or high bandwidth activities that need to happen, edge computing can solve for a lot of these things where data is expensive to send. So we see this in the tax world with procurement activities, where companies might recalculate, or they might choose to calculate tax on 100 million transactions in a couple of hours. And sending that type of data across the internet is simply not effective from a performance standpoint. And so whatever user is sitting back there trying to do their job is going to really, really struggle to do that if they have a traditional cloud model where they're calling across the internet. Privacy and security is another one. I consider this to be subtly the most important of all of these, because edge computing doesn't require that call for that real-time calculation to cross a firewall. It can happen locally in a data center. It can stay secure, and if you're doing anything that is confidential or has secure or requires processing of secure information, you can you're vastly reducing the security risk. I think the critical one in the tax world is really when we talk about globalization of companies. When they're calculating taxes in a lot of countries, those countries require that data to stay onshore inside that country where the transaction happened. And so edge computing allows for the data to stay routed locally, and so that your transaction data is never leaving is never leaving that country when it's not allowed to. And then the last one is you can see Murphy's Law. This one is really big in in-store retail. If you're concerned about losing connectivity for any reason, edge computing really solves for that, because it doesn't require an internet connection in order to run most of the time. So if you set it up properly, you can have a tax calculator running locally on a cash register, so that there is zero need to call out across the internet, and you don't have to stop taking transactions just because your internet goes down, or maybe just all of your bandwidth is being eaten up by providing free Wi-Fi to your customers, things like that. So the technology that we use in the business world to support edge computing is called containerization. And anybody that's familiar with Docker will understand this right out of the gate, because it's exactly what I'm talking about. And for those that don't, a container image is just a prepackaged unit of software that's designed to be installed and running as quickly as possible. And so going back to the analogy of the apps on your cell phone, a software container, is an empty shell that is designed to have any type of software put into it and have it mimic a cell phone application in the way that it is deployed. Not necessarily that it's mobile, but when was the last time you pushed a button on your cell phone to update one of those applications? It just happens automatically through the App Store, and all of that technology that drives automatic updates and quick installs and everything is inherent in those systems. And container systems in the commercial world are designed to mimic that. So your IT department can determine which software they need to have run inside of containers, what items they need to run locally. They can deploy them locally at the point of need, and they can build out an entire set of infrastructure that has them update automatically when the central cloud instance says, hey, this piece of software that you have running in 8,000 different stores needs to be updated. It can just happen. Nobody needs to push buttons. Nobody needs to email software updates out to the IT user in 8,000 different local stores, or God forbid, send somebody out to those stores, or even log in through VPN and manually do all that work. It just happens. And this is why containerization and container architecture is so powerful, because it's not just that you've got this edge computing component where these activities are happening locally at the point of need, supporting all of that value, but it's really the thing that makes it an extension of the cloud instead of 8,000 different on-premise software instances, right? They're all connected to the cloud, and they're all being driven from a central location. So O-Series Edge is what Vertex has come up with, and we're not doing anything special from an edge computing or a containerization standpoint. We're leveraging that technology, and we've taken our tax engine and we've put it in a software container so that our customers can utilize edge computing for tax. And so this allows them to create localized tax calculators that are resistant to internet outages. It allows them to create highly available, low latency tax solutions wherever they need them. And it allows them to maximize their performance for the best user experience, however they see fit. O Series Edge is ideal for, we've talked a lot about the retailers cases, in-store retailers and e-commerce operators, and any company that really wants to deliver a frictionless customer checkout experience where they want control over how they interact with their customers to an extreme level of detail. O Series Edge provides that to them from a tax perspective so that they're not breaking all of their paradigms just to get tax calculation. But on the right, you can see a lot of use cases that extend way beyond retail. Companies that want to create high availability backups, this O Series Edge helps them do that very, very easily with very low maintenance. IT departments that are adopting edge computing or simply want more creative implementation options. A lot of our most tech savvy clients are utilizing or at least evaluating O Series Edge to fit into advanced deployment architectures that they have that they've implemented across their networks. And then companies with security concerns. We talked about keeping data onshore in certain countries, but even financial institutions that want to keep their data very, very secure and have additional regulations that they need to meet for all of their software, not just tax, but they do have to meet it for tax calculations. O Series Edge allows them to create the most secure setup for tax calculation that's possible. So the benefits of O Series Edge are that it is localized and centralized. So your tax department can have access to O Series in the cloud, and this is the key to edge computing, is that it is connected to the cloud. So our O Series software, where your tax department can configure, they can report, and they can maintain the customized tax policy that you're probably paying them a lot of money to create to keep the company compliant and to make sure that you don't get sued by a jurisdiction for lack of tax compliance, is all still there inside of the central O Series tax system. That's what it was created for. However, the tax can be calculated locally in real time wherever you need it. And this could be because you're a retail organization. It could be simply because your back office is global and distributed all over the world, and you need tax calculation in many different locations. So O Series Edge allows you to do that and provide the top quality experience for wherever you need tax calculation for whatever reason. So I do want to take a look at some of our deployment options. These are very simply examples. This is not intended to be all-inclusive, but just to give everybody some idea of some of the ways that our customers are deploying O Series and O Series Edge. So this is our system architecture, and it's important just to start here because I think it's very, very important to understand that one of the things that differentiates O Series from some of our competitors is that all of our tax content is driven through the same tax engine and the same API layer. So if you read this bottom to top, you can see all of our tax content, whether it's sales or telecom or lease or VAT, even our Brazil content, is all driven through our databases. It's driven through the same engine, and it is accessed through the same API layer. So whether you're calling for tax from an ERP system or an e-commerce system, procurement, any other in-house system that you need tax to be present, it's all the same tax calculation API, and it's all configured in the same location. So your tax department can configure all of this however they see fit, and it's one call across many, many systems. So it's very, very powerful, and it facilitates a lot of complex use cases where maybe you need more than one kind of tax to be calculated. My favorite example is if you're selling cell phones with data plans, you're going to need sales tax and telecom tax, and if they are the higher end cell phones, you're probably offering a leasing option, so then you need lease tax as well. And so that's a difficult use case to support, but O Series does support it. And so how do we get that into the stores? And so this is very simply, a user is going to configure O-Series inside of our environment, and our Edge Control Center will deliver those Edge containers out to the stores. And that means that the tax calculator is local inside that store, running in real time, running without the need of an internet connection, and it's delivering your transaction data back to the central O-Series location so that reporting and remittance activity can happen. So you can see here is an example of a web store that is being supported by the same methodology. And I think the difference here is specifically that within a web store, you have companies oftentimes have the need for high scalability. If you're on a holiday weekend, maybe it's Cyber Monday, and you've got your website has 6-10 times the amount of traffic that it needs running through that web store. You have the power. Your IT department has the power to scale this up however you see fit. It's not you're not at our behest to scale our cloud to meet the needs of all of our customers everywhere all at once. You have total control over this. So we have certain clients that utilize O-Series Edge as a high availability failover. You can see this is a very simple model. If they ever lose connectivity to O-Series, they just back up automatically to O-Series Edge and get equivalent tax calculation, and they can switch it back whenever they want. And so this is a very quick example of what it looks like across many different sales channels. So you can see that in this particular case, you've got an e-commerce website that might be running Edge as a backup, and it's communicating directly with O-Series, but the Edge Control Center is pushing containers into a neutral repository, and you, the client, have control over the orchestration tool, which is moving these Edge instances into the stores and into the location where it needs to be a backup for e-commerce. And all of them are driving transaction data back up to the O-Series tax journal so that you can do compliance activities in one location. This is an example of Edge being load balanced across multiple data centers. This is very common in the enterprise space. If you're worried about latency and scalability, you might have an east and a west data center supporting your e-commerce web store. And so in this particular case, we can distribute the same tax calculation engine to both the east and the west data center, and we can load balance many different tax calculation engines in each data center to make sure that you've maximized the user experience, no matter where your clients are located and no matter where they're interacting. So Vertex and Oracle together, we've had a long relationship that has been very fruitful to our customers. We've been partners for over 27 years, and we have over 1,700 joint customers worldwide. And we have been selected by Oracle Strategy as the primary vendor for tax calculation to test tax integration. So I think this speaks a lot to the relationship that we've had over the years. We've been an industry leader in driving innovation on the Oracle Cloud infrastructure. We were the first tax technology provider to offer a solution that sits on OCI, which is Oracle's cloud system. We already have 80 plus joint customers utilizing it, and on average, customers using Vertex tax solutions on OCI experience a 35% improvement in performance. That speaks to the power of the solution and how we've been able to provide the best possible experience for our customers. And so this is typical tax data flow interacting with Oracle. So our Vertex tax engine and Edge dashboard can typically sit in the cloud, and we can deploy an Edge tax container in retail. A lot of our customers call the tax engine directly for their ERP activities, but a lot of them also look to Edge to support those activities as well. So it really depends on how you want to set things up. And just this is the Oracle, the Vertex and Oracle ecosystem. You can see Oracle's got a wide variety of solutions that they have in market, and Vertex connects to most of them. So no matter how you're utilizing Oracle, Vertex is an available solution for tax. So I'll pause here for questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Matt. That was awesome. And we actually do have a couple of questions in the chat here.
Great.
So let me go ahead and open those up, and then I'm going to post those into the chat. So coming up in just a moment, the first question is, how new is O-Series Edge?
O-Series Edge at this point is, I have to think about this. So it's about 9 months old in market. We have, it came from our acquisition of Tellutax, which is a little over a year old. And that organization had the technology foundation in place when we acquired them to create O-Series Edge. So the technology is a little bit older than that. It did take us 6 to 8 months to reconfigure that to work with our software and to make it a part of our software offering, make sure that it's a little bit more than making sure that our logo is on it, and so forth. But it's been generally available for about 8 or 9 months. Docker technology, the container technology itself, which is not Vertex, has been around for a little over a decade. But it's really, we talk about it like it's emerging technology because it really is. It was really for a long time on the margins. Not a lot of organizations knew how to use it and leverage it to their advantage. And over the last few years, it started to become a lot more popular for the reasons that we talked about.
Wonderful, thank you. We did get a follow-up question from that, and they said, does O-Series Edge have readily available integrations with ERPs like SAP and Oracle?
Yeah, so we do have integrations that are available with ERPs now. We are in the process, because we've been working with our Oracle partner team to fully test those out. ERP integrations are a little bit of a different animal, because the ERP is a system of record that houses transaction data as source data, and making sure that that data is synced with our transaction data that we only house for the purpose of tax compliance it is really, really a critical component. So we are right now in the process of testing out the technology with those ERP integrations. So all of the necessary technology in order to support them is inside of the tax engine container. So it is built, but we understand that we originally went to market with retail use cases being the primary need that we were seeing in the market. So these ERP use cases, as they're coming to light, we are trying to test them and do that end-to-end testing just to ensure that our customers, that it does work for those purposes. So we have no reason to believe that it wouldn't, but we understand that when you're talking about connecting to a system of record, it's very, very important that we have the end-to-end testing completed and that we can prove out with fully fleshed out proofs of concept that it does work. So we're just in the final throes of doing those things today.
All right. Our next question. How is this different than Vertex O-Series Lite?
That's a really good question. Lite was, I call it a precursor to O-Series Edge. The Lite tax engine does run locally. It is designed to run locally for a lot of the same use cases. The key difference between Lite and Edge is that Lite doesn't have this, isn't built into this container architecture. So if you think about deploying Lite in, let's say, 500 retail stores, the customer, our clients typically have to come up with their own strategy for moving tax policy changes or new tax content or software updates out into those stores, and it requires a robust strategy internally for them to be able to manage all of their light instances. Whereas O Series Edge is, it does all of that out of the box, right? So for any organization that is familiar with container technology, it works with the in-market Docker software and container orchestration tools like Kubernetes that are available off the shelf, and they can set up fully automated deployment strategies for their entire ecosystem, and they can make sure that those edge instances are staying in sync with their central O series instance, both for the purpose of making sure that their tax content and configuration are updated, and also to make sure that their transaction data is getting back to the central location so that they can do their reporting and compliance activities from that central location.
Awesome. We've got another question in the chat. Is the Edge Control Center another section or page within O Series Central Web Interface?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the O Series Edge Control Center is actually a separate application, and within our cloud infrastructure, you can move back and forth between different applications very, very easily. But it is a fully separate application that is designed out of the box to communicate with O Series. So we did keep it separate, so it's not completely integrated into O Series, so that just so that we can do things like update that software independently of O Series.
Perfect. I don't see any questions at this time. I'll give our attendees another moment if there are any last minute ones to go ahead and type those into the chat. Meanwhile, in the beginning of the chat, you'll know that there is a link that is to our knowledge base. All recordings are posted within 24 hours, so you can go back and watch this as well as the slide deck. Okay, we did have another question pop up, so I'm going to go ahead and post this one as well. There we go. O Series Lite was included as part of retail licensing. Is Edge separately licensed?
Edge is separately licensed. The retail license was actually a bundle of applications, including O Series and Lite and retail tax extract, which is a very sophisticated rate file. And so with Edge, Edge is licensed separately, but you don't need to purchase a retail license. You can purchase a standard O Series license to utilize with Edge. So it's just a little bit of a different structure from a licensing perspective.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions at this time. Matt, is there anything else that you wanted to include?
I think we just had the reminder slide, see you in Orlando, for the Ascend conference. So I'll put this up just as a reminder.
Yes, we would love to see you there. We had a great time in Vegas this year and are super excited about taking it to Florida this year. Bring the family with you. We did have someone ask if we can get a copy of the slide deck. Yes, that will be included in our knowledge base very shortly. You'll have access to it there. Well, all right. That is all I am seeing for now. I want to thank everyone for coming out today, and thank you to Matt for doing such an excellent job. Really appreciate your time and dedication towards putting this presentation together, and yeah, of course. Well, I hope everyone has a really great rest of their day, and see you soon.